Hello and welcome to my podcast. It's Learn Reiki and Connect, and it's with me, Tracy Matthews. So I hope you're well as you listen in to this week's discussion, because essentially we're just helping each other to connect with the light within. And this podcast is to help those of us who are going through difficult parts of our lives. Something perhaps might have thrown you off balance. You might feel stuck. There might be some that feel lost, or you're just simply waking up to who you are, but you don't know where to begin. And if that's you and that sort of matches anything that you're feeling or going through, then I welcome you. Because I no longer associate going through hardship or some sort of experience that is challenging, that there's something wrong with me, because I did that for many years. I had, these thoughts that I'm not spiritual enough or that I wasn't good enough. But actually, I've realised and I believe that these are signs of personal and spiritual growth. But I also want to help others to really hear that inner voice so that they also can get back on the path, navigate when we feel stuck, so that you can sort of reach your full potential and move forward. Because all the answers and all the wisdom are within us. What we need to do and find a way is to access it. So my inner voice has essentially helped me to work through a lot of what has stopped me from, like I was talking about, not reaching the full potential in life, just feeling always sort of thrown off balance. And this is what I have found, that the physical life with all the hardships and all the challenges that a person can go through, that at its root has an energetic explanation. And yes, at the heart of what we are going through, it has a spiritual answer. And that's really what my podcast is all about. So I welcome you and hope that you're now going to just settle in, because it's really looking through the lens of our soul is how you and I are able to see our truth and get a sense of remembering who we are and what we've come here to do. And of course, the challenge is always, well, how do we hear that? How do we get to that point? So in this week's, I'm just going to jump right in, because this podcast, we are talking about how to heal your mind and create new behaviours. So I always like to ask that question, where are you at? How is your mental health? What's been going on for you for the last year? Whilst you're answering that, I'm going to tell you where mine's at. I'm recognising negative thoughts and I'm squashing them right away so that I can create a quieter mind. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that more later when, as we go through our discussion. But for me in 2022, I had a sudden decline in my mental health. And what was at the root of that slide wasn't what I expected. So I'll leave you to check out that podcast, hearing voices in your head that are not yours. And there's a part 1 and 2. And if that resonates with you, makes you think, I'm going through something similar, things have just suddenly got a little bit out of hand, then please do take a listen at that, take a look at that one. And like I said, at the heart of our challenges, and whatever that we're going through, there's always an accurate, energetic, spiritual explanation. And that's really what I help others to do, and I do it in my own personal life. So how are you doing at the moment? Are you struggling with negative thoughts? Have they got quite loud? Are you in a cycle of the same pattern? It's like you're on repeat and it just keeps going round. Are you feeling low? Are you battling thoughts but you want to also change the behaviour around it, because you know that there's a cycle. You know, we feel low and then that does that. It's like a chain reaction. You know, and if you are feeling low right now and you're in a bit of a rut, I just want you to know that you can break a cycle. And I just want you to know that you're so loved by your spirit guides, your angels, your soul family. You know, they're all there watching us, helping us, and, you know, they're rooting for us whilst we're having a physical life and with our experiences. They really do care. Spirit guides have been just where we have been. They've had lives. They know just what it's like to be here, and that we just don't feel fully aligned. That our experiences kind of knock us for six, and we sort of do 5 steps forward and then do 10 steps back. So they really do care about us. And I always think, you know, it's when we're going through these tough times, when we don't feel 100% happy, they're the times that we really do need to sort of access that wisdom and that knowledge that's within us. So we're going to be looking at the power of the mind, the power of your mind. I'd also like to share what I've learned just through my own research, my own learning, you know, from a soul perspective in the Akashic records, and how that relates to thoughts and the different thought patterns that we can get sort of caught up in. You know, how do we heal our minds? And how do you create new behaviours? So stick around, stay with me. You know, I'd encourage you to hit the subscribe button. Join me every week as we discuss various aspects of our lives and parts of the journey. And when things are not perhaps going so good, you know, and if they are going good, that's great. But what do we do? Because it means more when things aren't going quite as good or aligned as we'd like to. So I want to start with something that we're all coming to terms with. And this has certainly come up on my path and my journey. And that's the power of the mind. You know, how are you finding that? Maybe you're starting on your spiritual journey, you're looking at the metaphysical world and just beginning to realise our minds are powerful. So where are you at with that? Yet so many of us, whilst we are on that understanding that there's a power of manifestation, we're creating our reality, we're also struggling with mental health at the same time. So from the soul perspective, what I've come to appreciate and learn is that we are creating thoughts and opinions about everything all around us, including what we think about ourselves. And this is what's really helped me, because the Akashic Records refers to what's called negative thought forms. And just to put a little bit of context around this, because when we hear the word negative, we sort of think everything's so bad, so off and wrong. And when we're always sort of looking from the perspective of the soul, it's not as everything's so bad and good, because we come here to experience both negative and positive. It's almost like both that polarity is what we're going to experience in our lives. So when it's talking about negative thought forms, it's more in the context of when we really get out of alignment of who we are. We're not aligned to that aspect of ourselves. And so essentially what happens, our thoughts are on a more of a lower vibration. And of course, over time, those lower thought vibrations will affect us. And we know what that's like when we bump into people that are perhaps what's coming from them is kind of on a negative trajectory. We know what that feels like. It's kind of draining. You know, there's not much good or much happiness coming, because it's very hard when you're in that vibration to sort of see, you know, the happier side of things. And, you know, with this whole thought forms, and how thoughts are so powerful. If this comes up in someone's session, it's because there is a constant thinking of thoughts that has gained strength. And this is quite interesting, because this constant thinking denotes that thoughts are going over and over again in a person's mind, and it's gained strength. And guess what? Thoughts become true. And this is why we've realised that thoughts do actually create energy. Not only do thoughts become true, this is when a person, like we said, these thoughts have almost gained energy. And this is where I'll try and help them to identify that there is a pattern going on here. So thoughts are powerful. And these thoughts not only are powerful, like we've said, and if we keep thinking them over and over again, they gain strength. But guess what? They also create our reality. So let's pause and think about that for a moment. If thoughts create our reality, then what thoughts are shaping yours? So what's going on for you at the moment? This is something that I've had to examine. I've had to look at that myself. I've had to sort of look at the energy of what I'm thinking. What are those thoughts that I keep thinking over and over again? So what are you telling yourself over and over again? And the thing is, we are all human, and these kind of happen, that we get these thoughts that it's either about how we feel about ourselves or others. I'm ugly, I hate the way I look, and then we go on, we hate, we don't like this. And of course these thoughts are gaining an energy, and then that's lowering our mood. So if we tell ourselves that, then we feel worse about ourselves. And this is the way that it is when we realise just how powerful thoughts are. So what's going through your thoughts at the moment? What's happening for you? What thoughts are lowering your mood? Do you know what thoughts are lowering your mood? It's those thoughts that we don't feel good enough, that we feel kind of rubbish. And on some days it might just brush over, and other days it really then can sort of bring a decline on. So we just need to sort of be aware of those thoughts. Because as a result of certain thoughts that we keep thinking over and over again, it will affect our behaviour. And have you noticed that in your own life? You don't go out so much. If you don't like how you look, because on a bad day you think, I'm not going out, I don't particularly... And of course that's affected our behaviour. We don't go out as much. Or we stay at home when we don't feel good about ourselves. It's a bad day. We all get them. Or this is a bad one, so you know what? I'm just going to stay at home. So what are you thinking about? And this is just a little bit of food for thought, really. And I would encourage you to think about what you're thinking about. What are the energy of your thoughts? What kind of thoughts are running through you? And why would we want to even be looking at that? Because it's going to bring awareness to really what you're thinking about. And next you'll notice the feelings that you have around those thoughts. What emotions are sort of bubbling up in you when you are thinking about those thoughts? Sometimes we do them without thinking about it. It's almost like it's a pattern. And these thoughts are rolling through our mind, and we do them every single time, every single day. It's almost like a reactive reaction. So when we start to look at it, then we start to sort of, if you like, analyse and become more cognizant and aware of these thoughts. Because they are, if they are kind of more on a negative trajectory and they are affecting us and creating our reality, then it might mean that we do need to give it some thoughts. So some of these thoughts might be really ingrained. Now, meaning we can't remember thinking anything different. And maybe that's one of the things that you have found out. And this is where the Akashic Record has really helped me, and how I've been able to sort out and kind of work through, if you like, thoughts. Because the records talk of thoughts are sometimes all around our beliefs, that these beliefs that we have are contributed to our thoughts, whether that is due to the experiences that we've had personally or the ones that we've learned from others. Or sometimes our beliefs are based on what we've been told, what we've been brought up to believe. So an example of that would be like if you hold a negative belief, and I'm just using this as an example, that your brother is better than you. So, either your family has upheld that and others, and you believe that to be true. And this is how we start, really, our belief in that starts to sort of create our reality. Then it becomes like it's a thing. And it's very interesting just how our beliefs can play a part in that. And that's something that I look at now with my thoughts. Well, what's my beliefs around that thought? And especially because it's the good thoughts are good. They have an energy to them. But if they're affecting our mood, then this is something that I have found really helpful. So something else I've come across is beliefs that are termed karmic beliefs. So meaning you've held the same belief in a previous life, and that belief has been carried through to your present life. So in a situation like that, I would look at, well, what's caused a person to have that energy of what a particular belief, and then we're able to sort of look at the cycle of the present life so that they're able to sort of look at the pattern, so that they're able then to let that belief go. Is it serving them? Because it didn't serve them in the previous life, we're still holding on, because that's what we do. Sometimes our beliefs are stemmed back from not just what we believe in our present life. And that's something that I had to sort of take into consideration, and why some were so more ingrained than others. The other thing as well, which is something that I found quite fascinating really, that I also wanted to share, was the aspect of thoughts that the record termed as illusions. Now here's the thing with illusions. From a distant, we make the assumption that something is true. Whereas the illusion comes from normally thoughts that have accumulated and built up emotion, and we seem to have what appears to be our truth. But in actual fact, it's a false perception. Now this is quite sobering. And an example of this, I'm going to use my own, because this is something that I had, which was an illusion. So through a difficult period and a time of hearing voices in my head, like I mentioned, that what happened to me a couple of years ago, and I had thoughts and feelings that were escalating. So the more my thoughts were escalating, the more I had an assumption about the situation I was in, and I was getting more lower and lower. And I felt like I had no choice in what was happening to me. And, I just thought, am I ever going to feel normal again? Am I ever going to be able to feel peace? And you know what it's like when we're going through something, when we feel completely unbalanced and we're not sure quite what it is. So my inner voice helped me to appreciate and understand that I was looking at something that looked one way, but actually was giving me a false impression. So I was participating in an illusion that my thoughts were creating my reality. So I was participating in really that I have no choice, and that's why I got myself into a bit of a pickle. Now that energy of that illusion for me was worry, and I was fueling my worry, which was creating more worry. So I had one big ball of worry, but as soon as I could see the illusion, that when I got close up and sort of tweaked my lens, guess what happened? That's when I started to quieten the voices. I just don't buy into that I don't have, that illusion that I have no choice. So I was able to sort of work through that because I had really my lens adjusted. What I thought from a distance was one thing. When I got up closer and I looked at it from an energetic, spiritual course, then I was able to see things very differently. And that's where I gained more alignment and flow and a quieter mind. I always say there's a part of you that will sense your truth. And I had that when I was going through really at one of my lowests. It might be that this space that we're talking about this, there is a little shift so that you are now able to sort of look at your thoughts. Look at the energy of your thoughts. Look at how your thoughts are creating your reality and your behaviour, and why perhaps you're not doing things that you'd like to do, or you do things because of a negative thought. So how are those thoughts really affecting your reality? And that's something that we have to sort of look at and think about, because it seems that we're all going through some level of mental health. So we have a set of symptoms, but it's essentially finding out what has put us in that state of being, of that state of anxiety, stress, worry, and when our thoughts then become more of a lower vibration. And I've always valued and appreciated that there is a part in us that can help us to look at that. For example, something might have started in our childhood. And from that childhood, that has now carried us right through to adulthood. It might have even been prior, to a life that we've had. It might have been through some level of trauma. So you get the point. Sometimes we sit in symptoms. We sit in that uncomfortability of whatever's been going on with us, a decline in our mental health, or even when it gets into our physical health. And sometimes we don't know what's actually put us there. And that's what this is really about. That is something that I have valued through my own journey, of just how powerful there is a part of us that can help us and answer these questions, that can point us to the right. Sometimes it might be that you feel navigated and moved to go counselling. And I always think if we do feel that, then we need to follow that part. Maybe we need to talk it through. Maybe there's a part of us that just needs to get it off our chest. Maybe there is the part of us that has never acknowledged the pain, the hurt of something that affected us. And worst case as well is sometimes we've been affected by it, but we resist it, block it out, and then we really don't know where it's come from. And we never try and maybe sort of think that we deserve to look at to why we're experiencing whatever it is. So this is really interesting. Of perhaps we need to sort of look more at what our thoughts are centered around. Because what we're thinking about will always affect our emotion. So that then is, what are we feeling? Are we sad? Are we angry? Are we depressed? What is that emotion? How is it affecting us? So this, I guess, brings us to the next part of how do we heal our mind? How do we create new behaviour? And I'm going to mention 2 very significant ways that you can do it. So don't go anywhere. Stay with me, because I kind of want to just talk about this. Because how do we heal our mind? Now, there is a number of ways that we can do this, and I don't want to overwhelm. I always believe if we do one thing at a time, we focus on that, then we can do the next thing. And what we're talking about is really about learning how to quieten the mind. And I always like to, do what I suggest to others. And I've had to find ways, and I would encourage you as well, to find a way that you can identify that gives you peace. Now, this is really something that you might have to sort of find. So you might want to identify, what will give you that peace of mind. Yes, of course, meditation's really important, but I believe and I encourage people to look for the same frequency in your everyday life. Now, this can be a bit of a challenge if you're stressed, if you're in that fight, flight and freeze, and I talk about that. And if you perhaps want to find out a little bit more information, you might want to check out the podcast. Can't meditate? Try this, because I really go into this a little bit more. Because we need to find those frequencies in our everyday life, and you will be at some level. It's just that sometimes when we're sitting in anxiety, we're sitting in stress, we're sitting in, if you like, fight, flight, and those states are interrupted, it gets a little bit difficult to try and find them. But this is where we need to sort of look at, well, how are we finding our peace at the moment? Is it during the walking of your dog? Is it when you're out in nature? I say this because if I go for a walk and I'm walking near a river or I'm near water, I'm I'm in a meditative state. I actually am connected with Source. It sort of triggers me. But I've had to really sort of understand those frequencies and look for them to really help others to try and find theirs as well. Because if we're having difficulty meditating, laying there and working from the foot, up, relaxation, up through the leg or whatever, and we're sitting there and we're completely having the attack of mind monkeys, that's really tough. And then we really kind of don't want to do it. Why do we want to sit for an hour if we can't relax? So find what makes you relax. Is that, for example, needlework? Is that painting? Is that listening to music? What is it for you that brings you to that peace? Where you've got thoughts, but they're not charging. They're kind of running out. And then you get to a bit where you just feel quite present. Maybe you can hear the birds. Maybe you can feel the wind. Maybe you're observing nature, the grass and the trees just rustling in the wind. And then you just get a sense of quiet and peace. You get what I'm referring to. That's the frequency of alpha. That's what you go into when you meditate. You know, meditation is not some big thing that we try and put on and sit there and try and do. We go into those frequencies. And I always try and help people to sort of see that's what they're already doing. So I guess really for you is, what is that? When you can just feel at peace, feel calm. Where's your happy place? What's that like for you? And if you haven't got a happy place, then what does that suggest? You know, that means that there's not a lot of self-care for you. It means that there's not enough you time. That maybe you need to sort of just look at your life and redirect a couple of things so that you can actually find those moments. Release some of that pent-up stress that we all get. Too much of one thing isn't good. If we're all work and no play, it's not fun. And if we're always doing things and very busy and we have no self-care, and I'm a great believer self-care is also our spiritual care. They're all related. You know, we're not just the human, but we're the spirit. We're a spirit being having a human experience. So we can't forget the body either. We've got to look at everything because that rounds us out. So where's your happy place? Maybe this is now for you to look at creating that space. Because I always want to help people to find that. Because if you can find that frequency, you will find it during meditation. You know, I'd encourage you to try it. Because if we don't try anything, then we've got all these great ideas, we've got all these things in our mind, but they never are at the level of action. Trust me, I've been there. I did a lot of things in my mind, completely disconnected from the physical doing. They can always stay in the fourth dimension of our mind. You know, I always use the example, we can think ourselves slim, you know. But unless we do anything in the physical doing aspect, we'll never get there. So sometimes we can live our life through escapism. We can actually have a whole life going on in our mind. But if we never actually do anything, then we never create that reality. And this kind of leads us into creating new behaviour. And, you know, if you are having these negative thoughts, you've identified that they are lowering your vibration. They are an issue. They are pulling your mood down. Then what I would help to encourage you to do is take a look at those thoughts. What are they? Take a mental note. Sometimes when we do stuff like this, we're looking outside of ourselves, and it's really powerful because it might surprise you at some of the thoughts that are coming from your mind. Sometimes we are very horrible to the person that we are. You know, we don't like ourselves. Maybe that's emotionally, mentally and physically. And sometimes we can be brutal in what we say about ourselves or about somebody else. Remember, these thoughts are powerful. They create our reality. So if they're on a negative trajectory or, you know, they're not serving us, then it might mean that we need to look at them and identify them as to what they really are. Now here's the next thing. This is how I got out of some of the most negative and really powerful thoughts that were running through my head when I was going through that. And that is to replace those thoughts. So, for example, if you have a negative thought about yourself, you might want to say, I love me. And incidentally, it's quite interesting when you are doing things like that. When you come at it straight out of the gate, that is really powerful. Through my worst sort of mental decline, I kept saying to myself, I'm the light, because I knew the light within me. And I kept saying it until the voices that were telling me otherwise got lower and lower and lower. And you know what? Sometimes I hear those thoughts, those kind of residue of patterns, and I just say it, that's a lie. I don't believe it. You know, and that might be something that you can take away. I'd really encourage you to try it, especially when the negative thought comes in. I'm ugly. I'm beautiful. It's really interesting when you keep doing that and how those thoughts dissipate. You know, and that's why I would recommend that you look at those thoughts so that you can see them and stand alone. See them, look at them. What are they? What are they telling you about you and about your life, about how you feel about other people or a situation? Look at them. And then look at the opposite thing that you want. So if I hear, I hate, I love. And it's been really powerful. And it's so simple, but just overriding that really has made a difference in my life. And I want it to make a difference in your life, especially if you've listening to this podcast, you're at this point, you want to heal your mind, you want to create now new behaviours. This really works. Try it. I always encourage people to try it. I never say to anybody anything that I haven't tried myself, because I don't know the value of it. And that's why me coming out of something that I was in a year or two ago, and I'm still doing now, because it doesn't mean to say that miraculously we never get a negative thought. Of course we do. But I'm on it like a bum. I'm on it quick. I'm out that gate. So I'm not going to let it escalate, because I know where that escalation and that downward vibration can take us. You know, and it's really tough when we've got to try and pull ourselves up, pull ourselves out. So we just need to look at the energy of those thoughts. Find what it is that brings us into that meditative state. Identify it through your normal everyday life. The daydreaming, that peace, sitting for a coffee, just having a coffee and just unwinding, and just the thoughts are rolling. They're not intrusive. They're just thoughts. And how sometimes we get these beautiful inner voice thoughts. Have you heard them before? Because they're really beautiful. Inner voice thoughts have an energy. They have the light to them, because they're coming from a part of you that is the light. Those little inner voices are like gold dust, because they come through and they just navigate us. They just tell us, you're going to be all right. They tell us to listen to that information. Go and watch that. You know, this is how our guides and how our higher self help us through when we're going through difficult times. Even with my experience, and the reason why I'm referring to it, because it was really tough, but there were moments of glimmer where that part of me where the light was always tried to get my attention and shine through. But what I was doing was just escalating in those patterns and in those thoughts. So I don't get to that level of escalation because I've done that and I've felt that, and it's really, really tough. So replacing negative thoughts might be something that will really help you. So think of the opposite. I hate, I love. You're rubbish, I'm amazing. You know, I'm safe. I am me. I am. I am the light. Because whatever we say from that moment on, we become, because that's the power of our thoughts. And it's really incredible that in amongst even our most negative thoughts, there is that light shining within you. And it's that inner voice that will always guide us. So I hope that's been of some benefit and has helped you, especially if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with thoughts. We're feeling low, or maybe we're feeling that we've been in this, whatever it is, this funk, this cycle, this pattern, this low energy vibe, and we don't really know how we've got there. You know, I hope this will help you. Just to tune in, even amidst all the sort of negative stuff that goes on, the light is in with all of us. And we're very much loved. So I hope this has helped you to connect with that part of you and the light that's within you. And please do hit the subscribe button, because I don't want you to miss the next podcast and all the other information where we're just going to be talking about real life, things that happen, things that can, take us off a spin, and what I've learned, what I've found out, because that's what I want to do. I want to share, I want to help. So I'm on YouTube, I'm on Spotify, and I'm listed in other platforms. You might want to take a look at the website at learnreikiandconnect.co.uk, because there you can find some other information. How I help people. Well, I've put together a home learning online Reiki of level 1 and 2 that will help you to connect and help you meditate, help you to take the hit and miss out of meditation. If you'd like to work with me over Skype, learning the levels 1, 2 and 3, I do 1-to-1, where I help you to tune into that light within. It might mean that you're interested in hypnosis, the QHHT Dolores Cannon method. So powerful. You might want to have a look at that. And of course the Akashic Records, which these sessions are done via phone call and Skype. And of course there are many that are using the Pendulum, and many that have reached out, and especially if you're trying to find out more answers, because using the pendulum is an art. The questions really are key, and how to speak with our higher self when we are using the pendulum. And I've put together a workshop, something that you will be able to sort of follow through, or maybe you'd like to download the free guidebook yourself, and you can find that on free resources on the website. So I really enjoy speaking with you on this topic. Hope it's been of some use and some help. Until next time, do take care, and bye for now.